Is Shinobi for the PS2 one of the hardest games I've played? Fuck yes. But is it worth playing? Absolutely. It's a tough game. Those expecting a smooth ride through each stage will be dealt painful lesson after lesson to satisfy Shinobi's high skill ceiling. But this is a very challenging action game done right, which becomes incredibly satisfying once you overcome the hurdles and master the gameplay. While the Shinobi series has been about ninjas solving problems in the present day, the 2002 reboot goes in a far more exotic direction. Set in Tokyo after a cataclysmic earthquake that unleashed swarms of demons that wiped out and resurrected the Oboro ninja clan, the former leader of which, Hotsuma, returns to seek vengeance for their deaths and stop a dark ritual from ending the world. It's the generic weird-looking guy doing bad stuff via magical bullshit, which isn't new. However, what is new is the grim morality that goes along with Hotsuma killing all of his former clansmen, be they friends or teachers who often make up the boss fights. Regardless of his pleading, you can't save them, but only bring them peace by defeating them. Sadly, the morose tone is let down by the subpar voice work, at least in English, with a very poor lip-syncing job. It's not long after you start playing Shinobi that you understand how it's closer to the source material than it seems. The design of the stages, the difficulty and pacing mirrors its side-scrolling roots. Each of Shinobi's stages only take maybe 5 or 10 minutes to complete, but you'll be repeatedly dying on each one for about an hour before going on to the next one. It's virtually the same as an NES title. Castlevania and Battletoads only take a few hours each to finish, but you'll be putting in way more time to master each and every stage. Each level breaks into a typical shtick. You advance linearly from one area to the next, with your path frequently barred by enemies you need to kill or charms that need to be destroyed before being able to move on, much like in Devil May Cry. Actually, it's exactly like DMC, which makes sense with it being a massive success and coming out a year prior on the same console. Whatever, it works if unoriginal, but what is original is the combat and how the game makes you play. Your only real weapon is the sword Akujiki, a powerful blade that cuts through foes quickly. After the first stage, the sword awakens and starts to devour Hotsuma's soul, the only repellent being the souls of fallen enemies. For the rest of the game, you now constantly need souls to quench Akujiki's thirst. They are highlighted as red pellets that appear once enemies die and are easy enough to collect. The soul gauge in the corner depletes quickly, after which your health starts being chipped away. This sucks, but as an upside, the more enemies you kill in quick succession, the more powerful the sword becomes. It's impossible to dispatch each foe one by one as they are too numerous and too tough, with some taking dozens of regular strikes before going down, all the while you're not gaining any souls. When the sword is fully powered up, everything in the game dies, instantly, including the bosses. So in each battle, you chain together the weaker to stronger opponents to enhance Akujiki's damage output enough to finish off the toughest enemy. Building these successful combos requires efficient time management and prioritization skills, as you only have seconds before the sword resets to its original state. It is incredibly satisfying to go from struggling with a handful of ninjas to decimating towering monstrosities with ease, all in a matter of seconds. This is something you really need to master early on, as chaining attacks is the only way to defeat bosses. Usually there's one for each stage, and they greatly vary in style and attacks. They're definitely some of the better parts of the game. They're also some of the toughest. With the typical attack, you'll be long dead before you've even scratched them, so you need to quickly kill enough enemies during the fight so Akujiki can deliver the killing blow. The difference between success and failure is seconds, and a single slip-up can doom you. Thankfully, controlling Hotsuma is a non-problem. There's no complex acrobatics or stringent techniques outside of wielding the sword. You can quickly dash forwards to evade attacks and traverse quickly. It's also a vital move when attacking, as you can dash again after hitting an enemy, maintaining your combo as well as escaping mid-air targets. The controls feel tight and precise. Most of the time I was blaming myself for costly mistakes, as the game is designed to accommodate the simple control layout. You also have some additional ninja-based tools. The frequent kunai knives temporarily paralyze targets at a distance, extremely helpful on boss fights to freeze them and knock down flying enemies. There's also the occasional ninjutsu scroll that can be used to deploy different magical abilities, an area of effect explosion that allows some breathing room for the player, a shield that briefly nulls damage useful for maintaining a combo, and a projectile-based attack for elevated enemies and targets. Besides their practical importance, chaining attacks has been made extra awesome by rewarding the player a scene of Raiko posing as all the enemies fall apart in unison. Oh yeah, that is the good shit. The higher the combo, the more intense and stylistic the scene is. It's a great reward for players to get better at the gameplay, at least for me. While the gameplay is exhilarating, the same can't be said of the levels, which can leave something to desire in their general simplicity. While being set in one of the most recognizable cities on the planet, Tokyo is pretty bland in the wake of a near-apocalypse in Shinobi. It's all samey hallways and buildings that lack all energy and life that's expected out of such a locale. Things do pick up in some of the more obtuse, fanciful places, but that's late game, well after you've explored the copied and pasted corridors of prior enviros for hours. You'll have no problem navigating through their often illogical structure thanks to the controls and the very helpful ability to latch onto walls and move on them indefinitely. The more you play Shinobi, the more you'll notice the gradual decrease of space you can move on in favour of bottomless pits. Some levels require you to carefully gauge the distance before jumping to escape an instant death. This actually becomes one of Shinobi's biggest grievances. Outside of the boss fights, I'd wager that maybe 3/4 of your deaths are a result of falling into these pits. Oh, it might be water or lava or jack shit, but it's the same result, immediate death and back to the beginning of the stage. Hotsuma has a sizable health bar, which can be replenished by rekilling the more stronger enemies, but it's little comfort as you freefall down into the void. Again, this old school nature of dying to the environment just as much as to the enemies is something you have to come to terms with. You can't fault the controls here, but you can fault the camera, which can be pretty shitty. The lack of a free look option can limit your view of nearby hazards, as well as creating some overly difficult leap of faith jumps which always suck. Yet Shinobi does a few things that save it from being unfairly difficult. Besides the stages being short, it's more about your own skill than having a particular set of items to win, so Perfectionist Run is unrequired to beat it. You've also got infinite continues. Couple this with the very brief load times and you'll be picking up where you left off before you know it. There's also auto-saving between stages, so short bursts of game time is perfectly viable. The smooth frame rate keeps the action steady, though it compromising the visual quality with its simple geometry and limited texture work. Besides the single player, there's not much else on offer. You can get higher scores for the levels, but I always ended up with a C rank regardless. This can make the replay value limited, especially when considering the linearity of the stages, but what's here is generally good stuff. Those who don't have the patience for this kind of game won't garner much interest or enjoyment out of Shinobi. If a 6 to 9 hour long game that will brutalize you every step of the way sounds good, then Shinobi is easy to recommend. It's rewarding, satisfying, and fun in that old school kind of way. Just watch out for those fucking pits.